I encourage all of you to attend the last workshop. Enough said about that. Today, today's session is going to be split into two parts. So we have one starting with Mr. Raghu Malhotra, and he is the president of Middle East and North Africa for MasterCard. Thank you so much for being here and for taking the time. He oversees all aspects of MasterCard's business and is responsible for driving increased shareholder value across the electronic payment value chain for all MasterCard stakeholders in geography. So it sounds very intimidating, as his title is extremely impressive, and I'm sure he will share a lot of valuable information with all of you ladies. So that's going to go on until 10 o'clock. We'll take a short break until 10:30, and then we'll resume with the second workshop with Mr. Pratik. Before we start, I just want to announce something to all of you. The first bit is we have created a hashtag for RoYa. Please feel free to start tweeting. Tell your friends about it. We want everybody to get engaged in this Twitter community. We want to create a buzz around it. We have already started doing things on Twitter, and we want to maintain the same pace, if not increase the momentum on that. There will be some live tweets taking place at the night of the gala as well. Another thing, and since all of you are here, I just wanted to show you a sample of what we have created. This is a prototype of the applicant's profile. And I would really appreciate it if all of you can collaborate on this one. What we want from you is a very nice business professional profile picture of yourselves where you look pretty. Not that you don't. And we need 4 categories from you, very brief information. The first segment is your background, the applicant's background, maximum of 5 lines. Just who you are, what your area of expertise is. Second segment is the business name and the category. So if you have a name for your business, do mention it and what category it falls under. Over here we have Muna. She has her business, Care Station, and the category for it is family and events, just to give you an idea. Third category, what need does the business address? In 5 lines, tell me, what is your business giving back, or what need is it satisfying in the market? Make it as short and as straightforward as possible. And the last category is the business idea. What's your business about? Generally speaking, you don't have to get into details. Again, a maximum of 5 lines. The reason why we want this is, we want this information from you so we can put it together like this sample, and showcase them on the night of the gala. We will have a screen set up that will keep running all the profiles of the 72 RoYa applicants throughout the night, so that we will have our guests get to see who our applicants were. And of course, there's going to be a nice surprise at the end that we will use this for, but I will not say it because it's a surprise. So I will send this to you by email. I will also let you know when we expect it back from you, because we have a lot of work to do. We have to translate it into Arabic. We have to send it to the designers and put it together and work it out. So I really appreciate if you can collaborate with us on this one. And without any further ado, sorry to keep you waiting. Raghu, we will start the session. Enjoy it, and I'll see you guys later.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you don't mind, I'm going to stand up. I feel very odd sitting down there at the podium. So, good news is that I actually don't have any slides. I have these notes which have been handed over to me, but I have a very dubious distinction of never using any notes given to me. Yeah, so I'm going to kind of do it in free flow. I have some ideas and thoughts to kind of discuss with you. But before we do that, a couple of things. So the second session that she mentioned with Pratik is going to be the better session. So I just want you to know that. So he's our CFO. So if it's about how do you want to structure your proposals, how does the business plan come through, and by the way, he is the toughest CFO I have ever encountered in my life, right? So that's a session which I think you will find useful, and you can actually, you'll get value if you kind of speak to him one-on-one and actually discuss stuff with him, and he'll be able to actually help you do that, right? So use that session. Me, I was telling, I was having coffee outside, and somebody saying, so you're going to tell us some things on how to do it, and I'm saying, actually, I don't know why you have that expectation of me. I'm basically a failed entrepreneur. So, and she said, why do you say that? You started a business. I'm saying, I've never really started a business of my own. The fact is, I didn't even have the idea to be able to start a business of my own, right? And that's true. If I did have an idea to start of my own, I would be probably making money for myself rather than the corporate I make the money for, right? But I actually do meet many, many people from various walks of life, whether in very large businesses, small businesses, startups, mid-sized companies. And I have had the good fortune of meeting people and learning from their experiences about what works, what doesn't work, and 9 out of 10 people fail, right? So the trick is to actually learn from those failures and make sure that actually you apply that knowledge into whatever you start, right? So where I can help you is by telling you, saying, I've seen your business, here's something which is a learning for you, or you must apply this. Apply some of these principles to your business, and that will actually ensure that you actually are successful. So that's what I thought I could discuss with you. Just have a general discussion and saying, here are 6 things or 5 things or 10 things that you need to kind of ensure that you think through for the long-term sustainability of your business. If that's something of interest, we can kind of have that discussion. If you feel that's not of interest, that's also okay. Tell me what you want to discuss, and I'm happy to discuss that as well. Right, so it's totally interactive. I don't want to stand here and kind of talk for half an hour and then have Q&As. I'm happy to do it in any way that you want to do it. So how do you want to do this? You want me to just talk about a couple of concepts and then we can kind of roll it and take it forward? Okay. So maybe I should refer to some of the notes. But one of the things in the notes was saying, so what's the business idea all about? Right. So many people who come up with good ideas, so I saw this idea from Mona there. I think it's a great idea. And the big thing to think about then after that is, how do you scale that up? How do you ensure that once you have a very good idea, that you actually ensure the stickiness with the customer, and they actually stick around with this for a period of time. And you also have to start to think, saying, what competition will come in, right? And how will you ensure that your idea still is relevant in the new version, right? So I can take just this example of Mona's and saying, okay, fine, we provide services for moms and young families as they want to go out for events, etc. I think it's a great idea. It's a need in the market, and somebody obviously hadn't thought about using that as an opportunity to start a business. So I think that's brilliant. Now the big question is it scalable? Can you take it to different countries? Can you take it to different cities? How can you expand that beyond, let's say, the catchment area that I don't really know her business, but can you expand it beyond that area that Mona is looking at, for example? How do you do that? What competition will come in? What's the very source of that idea? Is it just sheer convenience? Is it experience that you get? Is it cost? Right? Because all of these things will determine what sort of competition will come in and whether you can scale it up or you can dial that business down. So the ideas will always be good. You have to start thinking almost when you start the business out or saying, what is going to be phase 2 of it? So I'll establish this business and start to go to a particular trajectory. But then after that, how do I either protect whatever I've created or how do I scale that up? Right? Many people fail at that area, by the way. So they'll come up with, it's a brilliant idea, and they actually have a great start, but then a year or 2 years down is when they start to see the real difficulty come through, because somebody else looks at them and saying, yeah, I can do that. And then that's when the competition comes. So in the big corporate world, in our own offices, I call it saying, so what is the unique value proposition that we have, right? So what is that we have created that's going to be tough for somebody else to create? That's one. But even more importantly, what is the barrier to entry? How quickly can somebody replicate that idea at a lower cost than what you came up with, right? And today, given the technology, things change very fast. The trends change very fast. You would know this. The amount of information we process in a day is what people used to process in a lifetime 20 years back. Think about it. The power of this computing device, right, is the same as what it took man to send a shuttle to the moon. Apollo had the same computing power that you have in your hands. Exactly the same. Think about the power you have in your hands and actually how scalable this is and how fast things change. Who would have thought about Facebook? If somebody had told me that Facebook is a great idea when it started out, I would have laughed at them. So I'm like, how can it be? How can people possibly want to interact with each other on a digital platform only and give way to having a face-to-face interaction or a physical interaction? But that's reality. It's changed the face of even our business in MasterCard, by the way. It's become so digital, the technology is available, and by the way, because communication is better, ideas actually go from one place to the other much faster. So earlier you had the advantage of creating some business in a particular catchment area, and you would have, and you would kind of control it for a period of time. Now, because of the communications channels available, people will get onto that idea very, very quickly. And they'll start to think of ways of saying, how do I kind of do this faster, better? How do I put something else which this person hasn't thought of, and then actually have that? So it's just something to kind of think of, even when you start out, right? So we also have a human tendency to kind of put up our most ideal business case straight up. And I sometimes feel, is that the wisest thing to do, right? So many times I encourage our own staff saying, they'll say, okay, Raghu, we'll create this product and we'll market it this way, and this is the price points, and these are the things that we'll address. And I will say, okay, that's great, but let's not do phase 2 and phase 3 or whatever the ideas number 2 and 3 on the same product line are. And they will look at me saying like, why? You know that this product actually is going to be so much better if you put all the 3 things together. I say, I get that, but guess what's going to happen? When you go out there with all 3 in, somebody will actually try to build on all 3 ideas. But if you go out with one, first is, what you tend to do is you actually minimize the cost to some degree. Second, you learn a little bit and you know what will work and how it doesn't work. Then, very quickly, you actually give an experience for stickiness for your customers by adding idea number 2 onto it. Whether at a cost or for free, but you add that second piece very quickly on. Suddenly customers start to see value, they see, it's progressing forward. And then you get a phase 3 and you put the 3rd thing on there. So it drives it in a particular way rather than putting all of it on day 1. Rather, I'm not saying please follow this advice to a T. Sometimes I have to give you the absolute opposite advice as well. There will be some businesses that can't do with this incremental type of thinking. Yeah? So I'll give you an example of, that's a bad example, it's from our world. So there'll be some examples from the technology world, right? Where you actually have to go with the entire technology on day 1, whatever you know of at that point of time, and build the whole thing from day 1. Why? Because trying to go in with a 50, 70, 80% solution and trying to cut costs, that's the other thing I've noticed many times. Many entrepreneurs, because it's starting out, have one eye on cost, which is super, super important, okay? But there are some businesses that you can't have that approach to, which is saying, I'll go 80% of the way, I'll see how it goes, then I'll put the balance 20. Sometimes that is the reason you fail. Because it requires your entire push on day 1. By the way, sitting in the city we are sitting in, that's a great example. Many a times I wondered, why has Dubai managed to do what it's managed to do? Why has that happened? By the way, I'll tell you why. Because they have an idea, right? And what they do with that idea is they go the whole hog. And you scale it up you invest so much that the scale of what you bring is what determines how the whole business case goes forward, right? So think about this. If you put up a small mall in Dubai with all the best brands in the world, will that really attract all the tourists to Dubai? It won't. they are incrementally would have done something more than what somebody else offers. You put the biggest mall in the world, and you put all the frills and bells and whistles around it. It costs a lot of money to do that, way more than anybody else can afford to invest at that point of time, but it creates a new business proposition that nobody else can create. So this is a good example of saying there are two ways of looking at this. One is a phased way, depending on the business you're starting out, and the second one is just go for it. Just put everything in it and go for it. So in the end, I was going to leave you 10 ideas. One of them was saying, if you're going to fail, you fail big, but you fail quick. Yeah? Don't try and prolong your pain over 10 years and then in the end, oh man, that was a bad idea. Do it quickly, pay less, and start another thing. Yeah? You learn and you just get on. Right? So these are some of the concepts. I'm going to stop for a couple of minutes and we can discuss some more sort of concepts as well about some of these. So I'll put some kind of theory behind it if you want. So I'll just stop. So any questions, any comments, something else to talk about?
Yeah, so you need a lot of money.
Yeah. Not always.
We're talking to a bunch of entrepreneurs who are desperately making it on daily costs, and it's a tough one. What you're saying, I totally agree. I totally agree with what you're saying. But basically, you need money. There is no, because even if your business is proven after 2 years of being in the market, it's scalable, it can grow, all of that. But you're still an entrepreneur running it, and the only reason it's still in the market is because you have babied it, sat it, eaten it, slept it, done everything with it.
Correct.
So, to be able to do that scalable, you can't do that, can you? So it's just a catch-22 that's really tough. You do need to, at one point, then say, okay, we need an investor. Bring me the money. Yes.
So, I see if the idea is that good and you somehow can fund the thing yourself, I think.
And that's what everyone else says.
If you can.
Fund it yourself.
No. I'm going to tell you something else. If you can afford to fund it yourself, you should do it. But there is no harm in actually getting funds from outside, from either angel investors or venture capitalist funds. Yeah. But that depends on the scale of the operation you have. Because they also then look for saying, so the venture capital model is very simple. Of the 10 ventures they invest in, 6 or 7 will fail. So that they kind of lose the money then. But the 2 or 3 that they invest in makes $1 gazillion, and it more than makes up for the 7 or 5 that they lose money. That's their model. So what they do is they'll very quickly evaluate the risk, right? And decide saying, at what threshold am I willing to take the risk? And that's why they'll start to, if you look at them, they're very commercially savvy, and they'll say, okay, fine, I want 60% of your business for this money. I'm saying, like, come on, I've spent 2 years of my life building this up, and you want me to have 40 and you want to take 60. And a lot of people walk away from it. But if the idea is good, guess what they do? They scale it up to the next level, which individuals can't do. So you need to think about that. So people who, I'll just finish another. So venture capitalist funds, if you actually take them in, it suddenly becomes in their selfish interest to do whatever it takes to make your business successful. They will then use their entire financial muscle and their corporate muscle to actually get you there. So, if you had invested your own funds, and let's say you could have made $1 million, that's not what interests them. If they like the idea, they will actually start to think, saying, this is really scalable, it will go across 6 countries, I'm going to use this model and the technology, etc., and scale it up, right? And I'm actually going to get a valuation of 25 times. So they don't think the $1 million that you think, they think the $25 million and the $100 million. So that's their thinking. Yeah. So it's not a bad idea sometimes to actually do that. But if you feel that venture capitalists are not going to touch that because these are too small, so they also operate in a scale of saying, I'm not going to invest less than $5 million. If it's less than $5 million, I'm not interested. Right? But there are funds that actually do invest in much smaller ventures as well. If not that, you need to go around and actually start to have what I call angel investors. And there are lots of them. I didn't know this myself, and I actually got to know about this only 6-8 months back. There's a friend of mine who was, he was the CEO of Pepsi Foods. And he quit. And I was talking to him, like, how do you quit? He said, I've got fed up, I'm going to start my own thing. And I'm like, bad idea, but go ahead. Yeah. So anyway, he started out, and there's another friend of his, he started out who was in Vodafone. Yeah. So they started this business, and it's out in the public domain, so I'll tell you about their business. It's about tele-doctors in emerging markets around the world. So I'll tell you what they do. They will go, so if you're in various villages or smaller towns, so it doesn't apply to the big cities, but it does apply to expat populations who sit somewhere else, right? He's saying that many old people who are at home, they hate going out for the usual regular checkups, etc. It's a real hassle for the whole family, etc. But they have access to a GP. So what happens is the GP sits with you, and the specialist is actually on a computer screen, and all the reports, etc. So with a printer and broadband, they get faxed. So the specialist looks at all of these things, and then tells the GP saying, do this test, and do this test. Right now, please feel the pulse, tell me what it is right now. So there is an actual doctor sitting there, but there's an expert on telling them what to do, right? And they will typically not have access to a specialist like this, right? Either it will be too expensive, or they'll never get access to somebody like this, right? So now I can get the world's foremost surgeon or specialist into something which I never had access to. So it's a great business idea, and it's scalable across multiple countries, etc., etc.
How do they make the money? So the GP gets paid a fee and the specialist gets paid a fee.
Yeah, so there is a subscription that you subscribe for a whole year, and then you get access to everything. By the way, so you also have to think, when we talk about specialists, we only know of the very famous ones, the 10 that we know of in RA or this thing. Guess what? There are thousands of them, and there are some very, very good specialists who are not as famous. So they actually tap into those. And guess what? These specialists also want to do other things. They actually want to help out people beyond who they see. They have that need as well. So the commercials and the financials are not the only thing that drive this business model, but it works. Anyway, that's not what I want to tell you. So this person starts this venture. 6 months later, he becomes the CEO of Britannia. And I'm like, yeah, obviously that didn't work. So he's doing this. And then 2 months back, I got a call from them saying, so they appointed a CEO of that firm, and there are only 6 people in that firm right now, saying, Raghu, we want to raise $5 million, but we're going out to friends who understand business to invest in, because you understand that if you go to venture capital funds, they'll ask for 60% of it. And the value, we don't want to erode like that, right? So if you have a very good business idea, you don't have to go to the usual people you go to get the funding. You'd be surprised at how many people are willing to invest into smaller venture, right? If the idea is good and you actually see the financials, so that's why I'm saying, if you have a good business idea and you manage your firm well, you have good people in there, it's sustainable, you will have takers, and you don't have to erode the entire value by selling the thing off or holding it down. So there are options. So create that sort of thing. So if you are going out and you know that you require further funding because after 2 years it becomes a little unsustainable, from year 1 onwards, start to seed the 5 or 6 or 10 people who you think you don't mind they getting some value out of the hard work you've done, but they'll invest in and they'll trust you. You'll figure that out. That's easily possible to do. Sorry, you were saying something.
You call them angel investors?
Yeah, angel like angel.
Yeah. So the angel.
Yeah, because the angels that help you out most of the time when you need them most.
It's about.
Sorry. Sorry. Go ahead.
The angel investor.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't have to have shares. They could just, in form of loans. There are like different methods or ways. So it wouldn't be like the venture capitals where they would demand those shares. And if the venture capitals come in and ask for shares, like if it's a $10 million dirham, whatever business, and they want 60, 70. I
Yes.
had some wanting 80%.
I'm not so.
How do I protect the brand? Is that separate? So do they come in and get shares?
They still get shares.
So,
See, they will not ask
They're not
first, they will not do that same quantum of investment, so you require 2, 3 of them rather than the one, more difficult.
yeah.
But they will ask for the same share, not 80%, but they'll settle for a lot less. They'll settle for a lot less. And again, you know what, if you have a great idea, right, and if you feel you can scale it up and you can make a lot more money in the top line revenue, this is, all large businesses also have this problem, especially bankers. They like control. I want to be my own boss and I want to control everything. And the second thing is they think cost. They don't think revenue. If you think your idea is that good, start to think of the top line revenue you can make, right? When you see that, you will see that the absolute value of that top line revenue is far greater than the smaller scale business you would have had. So don't think I've given away 30% of my company. You have to think saying, I have given away 30% of the company, but that allows me to make my 70% look like 140%. Because that's what that investment is doing for you. You can't think saying I've given away 30.
So company is ownership of the brand. Am I confusing the two? Because
No, so they will never
so
have.
they have like Coca-Cola or whatever. Nobody
Yeah.
would touch the brand, but they have shares in the company.
Correct.
Is that what?
That's how it will work.
Okay.
That's how it will work. They will let you do whatever you're doing. They will not interfere in your day-to-day life.
No, they don't care. They come. I've had many to say, listen, we'll take it for 5 years. We just want to do blah, 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 blah. And then you
No,
can
don't
have
do
it
it.
back. Like, I'm just getting these the weirdest approaches
Yeah,
and
see,
proposals.
no,
and
that's not what I'm.
only in Dubai.
No. So yeah, see, that defeats the very purpose of why you started that out, right? So that doesn't work for you, unless you want to just say, just take it, give me my money, and I'll start something else.
No.
That could happen as well.
First of all, I think you're really lucky if you're getting proposals.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's the problem here?
I've actually worked with companies that either are completely VC funds or are partially looking for VC investments. Having come out of that environment, as an SME, I find it extremely difficult to actually gain access to these people.
Correct.
Especially when it comes to angel investors, a lot of them are silent angel investors and it's not possible to get access. So how do you propose some of us go after that? I mean, it's well enough to say find your 5 or 6 people to send these, seed these ideas to, but how?
So it's sure, you're right. It's a very cliquey world, and the people who invest, they know each other, and they have their own ways of doing it. So it's very hard to get into that circle. I agree with you. But I'll tell you what happens if you actually do communicate with the VC community, right? They operate at a particular level and a particular scale. But they get lots of other proposals and they actually pass them on to other people. Or they'll say, listen, I'm not interested in doing this, but why don't you go have a chat with so-and-so and see how that works? So it's about creating that network in any case. Whether you use it or no is secondary, but please be part of that network. Don't try and be part of the network when you're desperate for funds. Be part of the network from day one.
Just an other input.
Yes.
On that note, if you're looking for funds and so on to consider is also crowdfunding, which is really growing in popularity here.
Yeah.
And there are different types of crowdfunding that you could look into.
I agree with you, but I don't think in terms of scalability, crowdfunding is the right way to go.
For those who need that kickstart, not
It's a
necessarily.
kickstart, yes.
Yeah.
It's not a long-term
Right.
funding solution
Yeah.
at all.
So just, I have been approached, but I freaked out because I was like, what do you want to know kind of thing. Because I am, if you're basically the brain and the creative person behind, that's what you're doing all the time. It's hard to look up and say, this is what these people want to see. So is it worth really bringing in consultants to do that part for you and then you go? Because I find it very hard being the realist and the person who's gotten my hands so dirty to bring it to where it is today very well. I can sell it to anyone, that's not the problem. I can't do the numbers, I cannot go and ask people for money. I really You know, I can't explain it. I can ask, but I can't ask. I would die if I took money from someone and then didn't give him back what I had promised. And I'm not saying I don't believe in my product. I really believe in my product. My product's proven
She
itself.
has something, but she needs to cut the umbilical cord. I think she's too attached.
But what I'm saying is it better than just to get distance from that part of it? Because I can present it, and I just
You
don't
know,
want
the
to give money
classic
back.
SME's dilemma. You created this, you're emotionally attached to it, but there's a commercial aspect to it. And you need to find the right balance first in your own head, honestly, on how do you want it to help you commercially, if at all, or you just do it for the passion of what you have. Because you'll have to bring that balance, unfortunately.
No, you have to. You work really hard. You can't anymore. I think as an entrepreneur, I think you do have to come to a point of commercialism because
You have to, correct?
it's not a payoff
Okay.
otherwise. Like you said, on a scalable.
Yeah. See, if you can scale it up on your own, then just keep going with it. But if you can't, then it's back to my story saying, keep 70, see whether the 70 become 140, and let out some of the emotion. Let it be.
There's
It's
also
okay.
buyback options you can negotiate.
No, I don't mind giving. I don't want this to be about me. Sorry, guys, but I don't mind parting with part of it. It's the whole money part of it. It's getting someone to invest in you.
Yeah, but the whole
It's that
point
whole
of the
pressure
investment,
it was fine for me. It was my money, my
Yeah.
responsibility, my failure. If it was.
but it's their risk. It's not your risk. They're investing. It's like if I'm buying a stock and the stock tanks, it's not the stock's fault. It's my money that I decided to put somewhere.
And they are willing to take the risk. So
I just want to tell you something. Nobody in this world will just invest in you because they like you. Yeah. That could happen as well. But trust me, 99 out of 100 are doing it
They
because
see
they
it.
see some value in it. Guys, this is back to the basic principles. You invest, there's always some risk. And they're willing to take that risk, right? And that's why they will look at that investment. Otherwise, they'll be upfront saying, I like this, a great concept, I don't have the risk appetite to do this. And then you just talk to someone else.
It's very interesting that we're talking about this because I just received an email a few days ago, I don't know if any of you have received it, to submit a proposal to angel investors and
I
just showed the email to submit by September 10th. A proposal,
I've
and
heard you.
then 6 will be chosen to present their business idea or potential. Exactly. And they've requested, several criteria as your business plan.
it's organized by young Arab leaders.
Sorry.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah,
By young
yeah,
Arab
By young
leaders.
Arab leaders.
Okay.
They always do this kind of
So
network.
it's quite interesting. I found that it came at a very
Appropriate
good time for me specifically, personally.
That's what they call angel investors.
Yeah.
Right, and it said angel investors and venture capitalists, and we'd be able to sit in front of them and present our plan. Now, I'm thinking of pitching this, but when it comes to the part, I can submit everything that they want except for the financial
Yes.
part, which
Yeah.
I guess
I agree.
Ladies, let me present Pratik in the corner.
So Pratik,
Yeah.
start thinking,
Yeah.
what should
Pratik,
we be presenting?
I told them that you
I
are the
agree.
toughest CFO I've ever seen. So if it passes by his eyes, it will pass
And I
by
think we're
mine.
all in that situation. We're really, all looking forward to what specifically should we be putting in the financial section to show to them? What should we not be showing to them, if there is anything? to
I received the same email. That was my only problem. This
The
section
financial,
financial.
exactly.
That's
So
it.
if
I
we
said,
can address
It is
that.
that though.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is that. And who's going to sit with you and do it? I mean, I literally need someone to sit with me.
What should be included? What are these
Good business ideas that consultant.
So, okay, so Pratik is going to address that.
Okay.
So I'll just keep quiet. I'm sure we can help you with it. And he has this team of financial professionals as well. Right. One of the things which was going to my mind when you said I had this email, I was going to ask you saying, please be careful who sent you the email as well. So the moment you told me it's the young Arab
Young Arab
leaders,
leaders, yeah.
saying that's fine.
Yeah.
They're generally trying to
Yeah.
actually invest through. But you want to also be careful on what entity, private entity,
Yeah.
etc. it is, right? So you, again, it's just being prudent about
Right.
who you share your idea with, etc. as well. But those sort of entities are truly out there to actually see what are good ideas, develop the SME market, and actually get entrepreneurship going here. So those would be fine. How much is the time, by the way? more left or?
20 minutes.
Oh, okay. Okay. I never thought I'd take that long for the first section. So a couple of other things here. I think we did talk about this. I talked about, so here are some of the things that I've got in here. So one is business model replication, and I talked to you saying you have to start thinking the barriers to entry in there. So is your model about just a service, or is it about an experience? And how do you then, always it starts off with something which is convenient and it's a service, depends, it could be in manufacturing as well, so it's different. But once you actually have that, it needs to move on because customers will stay with you only if you make it experiential for them. That's very critical. So you have to, again, think of phasing the way I talked about it. You have to start thinking about saying, initially they'll just take it for the service because nobody else gives it to them. That's the basic reason why they'll come to you. But then how do you retain them? Because as you get competition, and that needs to be about stickiness. It should never be about cost. Because somebody can match you in cost. So if I have deeper pockets in you, and if so, you talk about financials, right? But there are financial strategies on how you can do this, right? If I have 7 times deeper pockets in you, and I look at your idea, what I'll do is saying, okay, she has this business going, and this is what her broad business looks like. And I'll have a very good idea of how that business will look like, saying it probably has so much sales, etc., so much is the cost of goods sold for this, and this is the margin you currently have. The first thing I'll do is I'll erode your margins. I'll come out there and I'll actually do it at a price point which will just erode your margins. Suddenly you're no longer that profitable. So you no longer are going to start thinking scale and stuff, you're just defending, right? And I'll keep bringing it down to a point where you're actually at a loss. And if I have deeper pockets in you, you will give up soon. And I would have made my business case not for the 2 years the way you made it out to be, or saying always profitable. I'll say, you know what, I'm actually going to make a loss for the first 3 years, but my hockey stick will kick in from year 4, 5, 6, 7, because when you're no longer in business, I'll start to raise the prices back again. Classic gaming theory. Yeah. So that's how, so you have to start thinking on how, if you start to be wildly successful, how do you kind of counter these things off? And you counter them off not by the price points and the service you do, by experiencing the experiential stuff that you bring for your customers. What sort of service do you have? How sticky are they? Do you actually have some touch points with them constantly? Those things become extremely important. This is not just theory of the big corporates doing it. I think it's more important in the SME world than even in the large corp world. Right? Because it's very easy to do. If I just look at your idea, I'm like, forget it, I'll just do it for 10 years. I'm just richer. Simple. Yeah. So just think about those things, and that's why I said think phases. It's every 6 months, can I delight my customer in a different way? And if it's not 6 months, every year, or every time I see competition coming in, what are the 2 things I'll introduce that will change the game? Yeah. So that's really something to think of. So as stuff like economies of scale, I don't think from what I was told by Nkosi, a lot of you are actually doing stuff on the e-com, online sort of space, but if it's into the brick and mortar, then you have to start having a very different business model and different economics and a different strategy than if you have a brick and mortar shop, because they operate differently, right? So I have no advice to give, saying depending on which of the 2 models you operate, we can have a discussion of it. So I think I said this somewhere, and I can't emphasize this enough. Please don't always think of cost. Think the top line. Think top line. Yeah. So simple math of that is 60% of a million is more than 100% of 500,000. That's how you have to think. This is cutting the emotion out and just doing pure commercials. So sometimes get rid of it, get investors, it's okay. Because your 60% is more than the 100% you want. So it's okay. Yeah. We talked about that. So as you expand out, one of the other things is who are the suppliers you have. So initially when you start out, you actually kind of take whatever partners you get. Yeah. But then you start to expand and you've been around for some time, I don't know whether they have the same philosophy as you. Are they able to scale up as the same way as you do? Will their quality remain the same? Do they have the same ethos of saying, you know, I have to now actually start thinking there's a phase 2 that's kicked in and a new experience has come in, a new service has been added. Can they keep up with it? Right? So don't just think your business, you have to see downstream and saying, so who are the people who actually are joined to your business that deliver that service? Because sometimes they'll fail you. So you have to start thinking there, and especially if you're looking to scale up and you're going to change your product line or the service you're offering. So you need to just kind of keep that broadly in your back of your mind saying, how do I do that? Yeah. We talked about the competitive situation. I gave you a classic gaming theory on how you do this, right? So kind of just keep that in your back of your mind on how to do it. Yeah. I have something they've written for me saying, know your motives. I think so. She absolutely espouses that concept of saying, why are you in it? Is it for the passion and because you love doing it and it's not just all about commercial, or is it, hey, actually I want to make some money as well, and then how do you bring that balance back in when you do it? It's important to kind of keep that, and you must always, I always do this, every 6 months, even in my job, I actually sit down saying, why am I still here? Am I enjoying what I'm doing? Or do I want to do something else? Do I still add value to this place? And if the answers become no, I actually have a discussion with myself and I take a call saying yes or no. Right? It's a very clinical way of looking at things, but it's a very good way. See, when you are running businesses, you are so busy doing what you do every day that you have no time to think about these things. I'll tell you another thing. I actually sometimes don't go back and tell people in office this, but I'll tell you. Sometimes I actually make some of my country heads and some of my business heads make presentations. Okay? And sometimes people come back and say, oh God, you make us make all of these presentations, etc. I'll tell you why I make them do it. Because when they have to make that presentation, right, on a review, guess what they do? I force them to sit down, forget everything else, and evaluate the business. Many a times, I actually don't look at the presentation after that. Because I've achieved what I wanted to do. I just want the team to sit back, think about their business, and because they have to put it on paper in a particular way in their own mind, saying, is this still making sense? How I thought of that? It makes them take a set of actions on their own. Yeah? That discipline is a very good discipline to have. It constantly keeps you in your toes and it constantly makes you think about the business, why you're doing it, what are some of the things that you've been ignoring for a long period of time, how do you fix those things? So very practical way. Every 6 months, sit down and say, okay fine, if I have to do this business case again and I have to do this, and if my competition is coming in, how will I take care of it? How will I get my next, so if I have 100,000 customers today, how do I make them 200? It will make you pause and make you do the right things. Yeah. So it's a discipline most entrepreneurs don't have because they use passion and emotion to create the business and fuel it. Bring a little bit of science to it, it will help you. Yeah, so that's, there are a couple of other things which are, I don't know how relevant they are.
Raghu, sorry to interrupt. Can I suggest something?
Yeah, sure.
We've asked some of the applicants to submit questions that they have for you.
Okay.
And since we're almost running out of time and we want to take advantage of your expertise as much as we can I run a couple by you?
Sure.
Okay. One of the questions which we think is interesting, it's by Caroline. And she asks, how to decide if I should partner with somebody? And if so, what are the rules to divide the business profit, especially if the partner didn't invest money, but only some of his time and expertise? Can you give us your feedback on
I'm
that?
covering this in my presentation.
Okay, good.
Oh, you are?
Yeah. And I'm going to give an example around it so that one can understand what
Okay,
you're doing.
okay, so we'll have that in more detail. Okay, yes.
We looked at the questions that were submitted, and because a lot of them were very heavy on the finance side, we handed those to Pratik, so Pratik
Ah,
will be
okay.
covering all those questions.
Okay, good news, ladies. So the
They're
second
all
part
they're all
of the
get
session, you'll have all your questions answered.
Keep him. We don't
Okay.
want him in our office.
Okay, great.
He'll come back and ask us questions, so you keep him.
I'll give you a percentage.
Are there any questions for me, or can I? So I'll tell you what. There's just I had written 10 takeaways. So 10 things you should just remember broadly. I'll just read them out, and it's not in any order. I'll do that. I'll just make you think. But before I do that, there's one other thing you must think of. When you do your businesses, right? And we talked about the motives. Do think of that balance that you need to have in life. End of the day, life is really about living. Yeah. How do you, if your business has become so all-consuming that nothing else matters, or it's become so low down, pause and think about it. Think, it's end of the day, you're here for a limited period of time, and you need to keep evaluating that. As you get older, by the way, these things come more and more. When you're younger, you kind of think, don't worry about all that. Yeah. But it's important to think about that. Saying, what is that balance of lifestyle that you want to have? Many entrepreneurs don't have that balance. They're so consumed by just their business and getting it and proving it, that they forget that it's just one aspect of life. So I just want you to just keep it in the back of your mindset. It's an important thing. Don't forget that. Yeah. So 10 takeaways. Some of it I've said, so we're just gonna go over it. I said be patient. Think in phases. Yeah. You don't have to implement all your 10 ideas from day one. That's one. Second is plan for worst case. Many entrepreneurs make their business plan on a best case basis, not on a worst case basis. Therefore, when they run into trouble, which is unanticipated, that happens in businesses many times, you're not prepared for worst case. You start the work then to say, oh, I have this problem, now let me try and address it. So when you think there's a business case and you go out and do that, you must make a worst case scenario and say, in a worst case scenario, what will I do? I run out of funding, I have to go to alternates. I have to do this. My supplier runs out, what do I do? Please plan for that. Most people don't have that. Yeah.
And do you mention that in your business plans, or do you have a section, if the plan doesn't go this way, this is what I'm going to do?
If you go to an investor, they will actually in their own mind, so they do an evaluation not on what you tell them, they do an evaluation on risk basically. So they'll discount everything in their own head and say, if this goes wrong, how will this get? So they actually do that. So I don't know whether you need to fully disclose the whole thing, but broadly to say, if I was to scale back in worst case scenario, this is what it will look like, it's a good thing to do. Actually, they'll appreciate it because you've kind of thought through the worst cases. Right? I said this, go big or go home. If you're going to fail, just fail quickly. Don't prolong your agony for 2 years. Create barriers for entry to your competition. You must proactively think of that. Don't ignore competition and fight it when it comes. Proactively create barriers for entry. Yeah. Learn from your mistakes. You'll make mistakes. Just don't repeat them again. If you make the same mistake again, you don't have the discipline. You're not learning. Yeah. Cut your losses when you know that you can't make it. If you know, and by the way, there's a gut. As an entrepreneur, you have a gut. You know whether you'll make it or you won't make it. If you know you're not going to make it, and you're just being there, cut your losses, do something else. Okay. The absolute opposite advice of that is sometimes you have to be very dogmatic and you have to just put that bone in your mouth and just grit your way through till the time you cross that tipping point. Because you know that if you cross that tipping point, you have huge success, right? So don't give up if you're very close to that tipping point either. Somehow get yourself through that phase. somehow get yourself through that phase, because great success lies after that. Many people give up 99th mile. They've done all the hard work and have somehow come to that point, and just when they could have done it, they run out of patience, they run out of energy, they run out of money, and they give up. And all they had to do was be just a little more patient. Just somehow survive another 6 months.
And cry if you need to, and take up kickboxing.
Yeah, okay, you've done that. Okay. Yeah. The other one is expand smartly. Just don't expand for the sake of doing it. Do some rigor around it. And last is hire good people. They'll help you. Hire good people. Don't just do everything yourself. Because if you hire good people, you are then free to take your idea to the next level. So those were some things to keep in mind. I would have run out of time by now, I have a feeling. But I'm happy to answer any questions or so if you have any. 5 minutes. Okay.
In one of your points, you mentioned create barriers to entry, but in the e-commerce world, everyone's just coming across. Is there something that we can do to patent the idea or patent the way a particular process works? Or I've never heard of patents in the e-commerce world actually. So
there are patents in the e-commerce world if you actually create some applications, etc. So that they're not patents, but you actually have copyrights, etc. on it. So people have to pay you royalty if they were to do it, trademarks, etc. So that exists. But typically in the e-com world, you're offering a service. You can't. It's a service. It's like hospital. I'm a doctor. I'm a service. You can't say, oh, I'm going to be the only doctor providing this service. You can't do that. So in the service world, it doesn't exist. So unfortunately for you, I have to just tell you, you better kind of think of competition, what are they doing, barriers to entry, scalability, customer experience, touch point with consumers. So it becomes super important, those things for that business. In the brick and mortar world, you kind of do something else.
I have a question, sorry, no one else has.
Sorry, yes.
Go ahead.
Related to the patents, you were talking that if you're having an application or like software, you can. What is the process to make this here in Dubai? There is a specific like organization? Or?
I suspect there will be. I just don't know who it is.
Yeah,
But
contact the lawyer. They'll contact the lawyer and they'll take you through that.
Okay, so it's something that I cannot do it myself.
You can do it. There's a department for registration licenses, and so you can just find it online. They'll tell you it's an easy process. You can do it by yourself, but you can contact the lawyer to guide you. But you can do it by having a phone call. They will tell you the process. It's very straightforward.
Yeah. Is this an area of great interest to all of you?
Yeah, intellectual property.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Why do you get into this? We have a in-house legal counsel. He's a corporate lawyer, by the way, so I want to warn you. Not as good as Pratik. But he can actually tell you, saying, here are the chambers of commerces, this is how you need to broadly think of things. Here are some of the risks when you do it. So he can kind of talk to you about those things. He might not be the absolute expert on patents and stuff, but he has a broad idea of what you need to do, and he can at least tell you broadly and guide you, saying, do the following 3 steps. Not that we can. Oh, Pratik has got his. Oh, this is the dream team of finance. So you know that both of them are sitting in a meeting with the greater team. It's not going to be a good day. Luckily, they're on your side, so you're okay. Okay, I hope you found this useful. If not, please give them the feedback and make it improve for the next time.
Thank you.
Yeah, some of this is very generic. But don't underestimate these things. This is the difference between success and failure in many cases. It's not the idea, it's not the funding, it's these small things that make the big difference in success. Thank you for having me. I was about to say, the last time I came here, I was the only man in the room. I started off being like that, but now I have 1, 2, and 3 people, so you guys I can't say that any longer. So thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Thank you.
He basically has the responsibility for all aspects of financial management, including business and strategic planning, financial planning and analysis, management reporting, customer deals, and business administration functions, which I think is spot on for all of you today. So fire away with your questions after he's done with his presentation. Pratik, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for being here with us, and enjoy the session.
Great pleasure. I think I was just telling Napoli, I was told that, okay, I need to give basic finance understanding, but having heard your interaction, I just feel that you're far ahead of basic finance understanding. So I need to just figure out, I'll gauge it as how do we go. You tell me if it sounds very basic, we can just step it up accordingly. I got your questions through Natasha, so I have definitely addressed those questions, but it might not be up to your expectations, so just ask questions and try and get more clarification. So with that, we can start. So now I think my introduction was given. So I just want to tell a little bit more about myself so that you understand whom you are listening to. You will be spending 2 hours with me. So by profession, I'm a chartered accountant, and I've been with MasterCard for about 4 years and doing the role which was just defined. And prior to this, I worked in banking for 10 years with Barclays Bank in Dubai and then with Citibank in Singapore and India. So that's pretty much I've done, and I've always done finance. But if you understand finance, there are very different aspects in a big corporate finance. So it's not, finance sounds like a big, it's a one terminology, but there are various functions within finance. You have someone who takes care of accounting because they specialize in accounting. Then you have someone who looks at the strategic planning and the performance of the business. We call them as business performance analysts. And then you have people taking care of tax, you have people taking care of procurement, and all other aspects. So it's very, very segmented in finance. So it's not one finance. Finance is not a simple terminology in this time. So most times I've spent in the business side of the finance. I am an accountant, but I hate accounting. So, because it's the most boring thing to do. However, it's the most important thing to do. So the way I look at the roles in finance is that, okay, you need to, I call it as basic building blocks. If you don't do that, you don't exist. So those are for me accounting, statutory reporting, taxation, all this you need to do. But in the changing world, nobody wants finance to just do these things. What they want is how can we help business to grow the business faster. So that's what Raghu was telling about. He finds me tough as CFO. I find I'm the easiest here. Who buys in any business idea that you bring in? It's just that I start questioning, and Nakosi will admit that. I start questioning, okay, you want to take this business further. Just tell me why you feel this it will work. And have you thought of this following risk when you have built the business case? And if she can tell me, yes, she has done it, I don't question her financial customer. What I do is I stress test in my mind. Okay, she's telling me she will generate 100. If these things go wrong, will she generate 100 or whether she will generate only 70 or 50? That's all I do. I don't question her beyond that. So that's just in summary, I'll tell you. So now what I'll do today is that one other thing which I feel, I heard, everybody feels that financial modeling and finance is very scary. It is not. I mean, just think as finance, even in childhood, we start thinking about when we get our pocket money, we start budgeting that, saying how are we going to spend this pocket money? Because all of us want many things, but we have limited resources available to us in terms of money. Then we prioritize where we want to spend this money so that we get maximum value out of it. That's all we do in finance all the time. So every time we know that the resources are limited, how do you want to put these resources to the best use? That's all is finance all about, I can tell you. It's very simple. Yes, accounting is a little complicated, but the way I look at accounting is, again, it's very simple. We accountant makes it complicated by throwing in jargons, debit, credit, this and that, and balance sheet, cash flow. But when I go through that, you will see how simple it is when I'm talking about it. And when you start up a business, you don't need to be as evolved as multinational organizations are in managing your financials. You need to do it in simple terms. Like entire of my family, I come from a business family. I've never seen my father or my grandfather maintaining the books of accounts the way I do. All that they used to do was, okay, this is the money I get from sales, this is the money I spend, and this is the profit I make. They don't go beyond that. And that's what is real finance. We make it complicated because then we have regulators whom we need to answer it for. But for an individual, this is what we need to do. We just need to figure out what gets in and what gets out. That's finance. Okay, so so what I'm planning to do is, I talked about some of the things. I talked about myself. I talked about finances and everyday activities. I gave you one or two examples. I'm going to talk about business case preparation, which is one of the most, I think, scary topics for all of you. You figure out that business case, and I've seen people confusing business case between business case and financial modeling. For me, financial modeling is just one part of the business case. And I heard about saying that angel investor, when they come, they ask for financial modeling. Yes, they will look for financial model because they are investing and they are trying to figure out what return will make out of it, what return they'll make out of it. For that, they need financial modeling. But typically, I was talking to a few people when I was in the corporate area. Typically, when I evaluate the business cases that come to me, I don't just look at difficulty here. That's what I am logged in. So it's always I look at financials, but when you come up with a new idea, what I look at is what is the idea. Is that idea unique? Is that idea scalable? And are you clear in your mind how are you going to take this idea forward? I don't look at financial immediately when I start reviewing for any business case. Nothing. I just speak to the people for first 30-45 minutes and try and understand what they are trying to do. Once I have done that, then I look at the financial projections. And then I look at the financial projection and start matching up what the person has told me versus what they have put it on the page. And if I find disconnect there, then I start questioning, saying, why do you think, you just told me that you are going to do the business in this fashion, but what you told me versus what it shows on financial are not matching. So that's where I start evaluating. It's very difficult for any venture capitalist or for me even. So if venture capitalists are not experts in every line of business, but they invest in every line of business, how will they know business better than what you know? They hear what you tell them, and they try to see how confident you are when you are telling them. Have you thought of all the risk that they can impact your business? So one other thing which I typically appreciate some of the salespeople when they come and do it, never go and tell them that. So I was telling, I hear people, I look at the business ideas, and then evaluate risk in my mind. But you always can direct those persons to the risk which you want them to be directed. So when you go with a business case, if you present, okay, this is the scenario which I have drawn up my financial model, but these are the risks I see in the business, and then this risk happened, then the financial business case will look this way. Once you have done that, you have gained confidence with those investors to say that, okay, you have thought of the business, you have thought of the risk, they need not. So Raghu was saying you don't need to tell them everything. I feel that you need to tell them many things, but you need to tell them what they need to know. And don't leave them in ambiguity where they start applying their own mind. Don't let them apply their mind. You direct them where you want them to go to. So, okay, when you talk about business case, just tell me what thoughts come to your mind, what all you will need when you prepare a business case. Give me a few examples.
Top line, where are you getting your revenue from?
Okay.
What are the costs that you incur?
Yeah.
Who are your suppliers?
Yeah.
Who are your audience? How big is your audience?
Yeah.
Your market?
Competition.
Yeah.
Scenarios of how the work will go. You apply different scenarios.
Legal provisions.
Yeah. All of that. Plus the most important, as I was telling you, is your business idea first. So first of all, you need to see the size of the market for the idea that you have come up with. Once you size that up, then you can understand what are your competitions. And this is why I'm explaining this. When you go to any investor to get money, this is what you need to articulate to them. All of the investors want the structured approach of thinking. So I hate presentations when I have to do it to some people. Not in this group, but generally when I have to go and ask for money and do presentations to my boss and all, I hate it. But that's very, very important part of getting anyone on your side. If your story comes through in a very right manner, you'll get the money. People will look at financial modeling, but they will not overemphasize on the financial modeling, because that's just one part. All of us understand that financial modeling is based on assumptions. And assumptions are as good as, or it could be as bad as what you think. So it's very important to get the story right, get the structure right. So I was just illustrating an example. For example, you need to start thinking of your idea. If your idea is unique, I think everybody will give you the funding. All that they need is, okay, idea is unique and the person is dedicated and has clearly thought through what could go wrong, and if something goes wrong, where to stop. I will give money if I were as a venture capitalist, if that works.
Unique, if I may interrupt you, unique is very important, but if it doesn't make you money, it can be very unique, but it cannot be very much revenue generating, for example, right? Because I think I have probably something along the line that I find mine very unique. And now as I go further down the line and more the business cases, I start doubting a little bit whether it really generates that much money.
Then your pricing is wrong. I think if something is unique, anybody will pay any price that you want. So all of you go for shopping. So what do you think the difference between Louis Vuitton and a Prada bag? They just sell at the price because they are demanding that brand value. If your idea is unique, you can demand that value. If it's not unique, then you have competition and people compare. But if your idea is unique, there is no comparative pricing. So you demand higher. So it's not that your idea was wrong, probably you need to relook at your pricing. So I was talking about how I think of preparing a business case. First, you need to convince yourself with the idea. You need to size up the market. You need to size up the competition that you have. These are the three first things I will do if I have to start my own business. And then you start thinking of, okay, what cost it will take to build this one? How can you scale it up? What is the expertise that you need, which you don't have, you might have to borrow it externally. All those things comes later. Once you have thought through, financial modeling is just putting those into numbers in a spreadsheet. That's all. But if you have convinced, as I was talking to the investors, saying that, okay, your idea is unique, you have thought through this, people will put less emphasis on financial modeling, which needs to be rosy anyway. So the first financial modeling, you never say that, okay, it will never make money. You will never get money for that. And there are key rules which I try to do when I look at financial modeling, which is, I'm sure all of you would have heard of break-even, you would have heard of payback period. These are very, very important things which each of the investor will look at. So are people aware of break-even point? Sorry, I'm not going through the presentation, I'm just talking because I heard that this presentation might not work for you guys. Do you have an idea what is break-even?
Yeah, it's the point where your cost meets your sales, and it's like the after that you start to generate the revenue, which is the
yeah, you start generating your profit.
Yeah,
absolutely, absolutely right. What's payback?
What you pay back to your investors out of your profit?
No, we
Payback period?
Finance terminology. What does payback means?
It's a time which you need for your revenues to, or your profit to pay back your initial investment.
Absolutely.
These are the break-even point.
No, break-even point might not be paying back. Break-even point is where you start making profit. So, for example, if you have invested $100 in the beginning of the business, and you have been suffering losses for 2 years, and in the third year you start making profit, but you have already accumulated losses for first 2 years. So break even happened in third year, but payback will happen later because you need to recoup all the losses that you have made. These are the two things which.
The payback?
Payback is basically, so break even you are clear about what it is. So in all businesses, you invest some money upfront, and then you start generating sales. With sales, you get costs. Typically, I don't think any business makes money from day one. It takes time. So for 2 years, say you made loss. Your your cost exceeded the sales that you are getting or whatever it is. In third year, you broke even. Your sales is equal to your cost. So you're not making any loss. But what has happened in first 2 years, you have incurred losses and you have put in your initial investment. The time when you recoup all the losses that you have made in first 2 years and the initial investment, that's the time we call it as payback period. Every investor will look at that piece, saying what is the break even and what is the payback period. And they will.
Is that the same as return on investment?
No, it's not return on investment. Return on investment will be looked at over a longer period of time. Okay. So typically what happens, people look at break even for sure, saying, okay, what is the time when this business will start making money? And then investor will look at what is the time when I can get all my money back. So, and then he starts making money. So for that period till the payback has happened, he has not got any return. So typically we try to see that the break even, depending upon the return that it can generate in long term. So typically I would expect, and I don't fund business cases unless and until it's completely unique ideas. It is transformational completely, and I see that it has a big future. I want to see that break even happens in 18 months and payback happens no later than 36 months. If payback happens more than 36 months, just imagine angel investor, venture capitalists are not there to run your business. They just come in, they put some money, expect abnormal returns, but they expect abnormal returns sooner than later. So if you tell them that you will only start making money after 18 months and you will return all their money after 36 months, they won't have patience. They want quicker returns. So this is one thing which is. Yeah.
You apply this time frame irrespective of the bottom line?
No, that's what I was saying. So unless and until I see that first 2 years are really rocky and you will not make any money, but third year onwards, you are going to bring 50% margin to me or return on investment, I might go with a 4-year payback instead of 3 years. But generally, as a rule, if this is a business which someone is funding and he doesn't have a very long-term view, who has a medium-term view or short to medium-term view, they will not wait for 4 years to break even.
To put it differently, those time frames would apply for a business that has a bottom line of what?
Anything. If it's bigger business and it's going to give me bigger returns, I might wait longer, but it won't be substantially longer. So it can differ by 6 months, 12 months, but it won't be that someone will wait 6 years for the payback to happen. Nobody will, because that's too long in duration.
So what are ideal times for?
As I was telling you, when I look at 18 months is what I want break even to happen.
Yeah.
And 36 months is what I feel that payback should be.
And ROI should be 5 years?
I typically look at business cases over 5 to 7 years. It could be 5, it could be 7. Yeah, so I was just giving you some things. So you need to talk about market size, you need to talk about there are many things which you need to do. So some of this I talked about, and some others I will talk about as we move on, because those relate exactly to financial modeling. So when I talked about salary, that's financial modeling, you need that. Utilities payment, rent payment, all this you need for financial modeling.
Can I just confirm that we'll get this presentation?
Will we get this? Can we send this presentation to the ladies?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
You can do it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
I just would like to know the difference between return on investment and yield.
Yield.
Sorry.
I would say it depends in what context you are using it. In some cases, it might be the same. In some other cases, it might be totally different. So yield, for example, if you are selling a product, say you are selling it at 10 dirham or $10, and your cost is 5. So we call it yields 50% margin. A return on investment is very specific, saying over 5 years I've invested $100 and I get $50 back, which means over 5 years I have 50% return, which we typically talk in annualized, not over the term. But we can always say that, okay, this business is yielding me 50% return. So it can be used interchangeably, but yield can be used interchangeably. But return on investment will only mean what you are getting back for your money.
Sorry, I mean, I understand all of this while I'm sitting here.
Yeah.
But the minute I walk out of this room, I'm telling you, the percentage retainable is on a yield percentage.
So, great.
Tell me, till now, what is about finance which you did not get? I didn't talk about finance at all. So. Did I talk anything about finance?
But I don't know, wouldn't it be easier if we actually take the budgets that we have to fill it in and discuss on that?
Yeah, so what I'm trying to do is that later on we'll go through an exercise also. So I've only talked about what the business case is, how I think about business cases. Sorry.
Or do you advise we hire an accountant as one of the most
No, because an accountant cannot do your budget.
Why are you killing my job? Yeah, you are.
But I have heard from a lot of entrepreneurs who are well into their business that hiring an accountant is the best thing that they do.
No, it's not. No one will know your numbers like you do, and
It doesn't
no
mean
one.
that you stop
Just
doing your
need someone to
numbers.
translate them in.
But you don't stop doing your numbers, you just do them with a professional whose real job it is just to do that. So you are more in control of everything else, and this guy is doing. It's like if you have a job selling a product, and you say I'm going to be the salesperson and the accountant and the buyer, and it doesn't make sense to do everything.
Yes, that's true. You need a hand, but
I still need to understand
Yeah,
it.
so I think I agree with you. Hiring an accountant. The thing is, as I was explaining you the role of finance, what are you looking this accountant to do? Are you looking at him or her to count the money that you are making every month or not?
That takes 5 minutes.
Okay, if you do that, you can do that, right? That is an accountant doing. As I was explaining you the finance structure and what functions exist in finance, I was talking about accounting, which is financial accounting, which is the base of the pyramid. You need to do it to exist. But for me, like you are right now thinking how to prepare a business case, how to articulate that business case. You don't need an accountant for that. An accountant will never be able to do that for you. Who can do it? Probably an evolved finance manager can do it, who is just not an accountant, but who looks at a business, who looks at how you can drive the business, how you can sell your story, and also can do a financial modeling for that. An accountant will never get you what you are looking for. In some situations, so I believe, so for example, Nakosi is in sales. She does all the financial modeling. I don't do financial modeling for her. The reason why I feel that that's the right thing to do is because when she puts things in perspective, she understands how she needs to talk to the customer, how she needs to talk about the business proposal that she's putting across to them. If I do it for her, she would have not thought through the steps that she should think through. And if you hire an accountant or a finance manager, in many cases you might land up doing that, but I would say that you need to do that thinking, and he just needs to be working for you if you are worried about spreadsheets.
No, thank you. I was doing a bit of kidding here to lighten the mood because I need lightning when it comes to this. But you did answer the question because it is a matter of knowing sometimes really where you need to invest your money in too, to say, do I go this route, do I need to go that route? So,
So in terms of the flow, I was thinking of I'll talk for some time and then I'll introduce the concepts of profit and loss account, cash flow statement. I feel that people many times use this interchangeably. It's not same, it's different. And then we will make you work and give an exercise to actually build a profit and loss account and cash flow. It's a very, very simple one. I think that will take all the scare away of finance, I can tell you. And if you can do this, you can do the complicated ones as well. So I was talking about what are the 3 things which anyone will do on financial modeling. They'll have to build a profit and loss account. They'll have to build a balance sheet, and then they will have to do a cash flow statement. I would say, for me, the most important thing to do in the beginning of the business is cash flow statement. In most occasions, we will not make profit in year 1, year 2. But if you run out of cash, you will have to shut down your business. So the most important in the beginning of the business should be cash flow statement. Again, profit and loss and cash flow. So I was telling about how my father used to do business or my grandfather used to do business. They never bothered about profit and loss account. They used to do cash accounting, saying, okay, I've given so much money out, this money came in, that's all I made. So what we accountants do gain our living, what we do is we start complicating things. So profit and loss account is nothing but it's an accrual concept. What happens, so people know about what is accrual and what is cash basis. Or you want me to just refresh that? So, CP, what happens, say you bought a chair to invest it in your business. The share costs $100. You spent the money today, but this is going to live for 5 years. So what we do is we capitalize this share, put it on a balance sheet, saying, okay, I've spent $100, and then I take 1/5 of cost over 5 years. I'm just putting it simplistically. So in your cash flow, you have put $100 cash went out, but in your profit and loss account, you will only see 20 coming at is your cost, because you expect the benefit of this share to be there for 5 years. That's the basic difference between what cash flow and what a P&L account is. If you take away this difference, profit and loss account and cash flow will be exactly the same. One is just when the money went out and when the money came in, and other one is what is the profit you made, given that this is an investment. If we don't do profit and loss account, then all the businesses will show huge losses in initial years, because all the investment goes in initial years. Nobody will invest money in those companies. So that's the big difference. What is balance sheet? I'll probably not talk about it, because to me this matters more when your organizations become bigger. People start looking at balance sheet. You will have to prepare a balance sheet when you go to an investor saying that, okay, this is how it will look after 5 years. You will have so much of capital, you have accumulated so much of profit, you have so much of assets. But I would say that if we are more comfortable with profit and loss account and cash flow, balance sheet will happen, and it's just more of a finance thing. So having said that, so let's just go through profit and loss account. So as I was telling you, simplistically for me, it's money in, money out. That's your profit. If your money in is more than your money out, you have made a profit. That's as simple as what the P&L, profit and loss account should look like. Yeah. Okay. Tell me income, which was the first part of the profit and loss account. What would be sources of income?
Sales.
Yeah.
Investment.
No, it's not.
Okay. Investment. Investment could generate income, because if you put money in the bank account, it will generate interest. That's income. What else? So you talked about sales. I heard most of you are in service. Service, you don't call it sales, you call it fee. So that could be another aspect. What else? So there are various lines which you can get it for. It could be sales. Typically that happens in a retail, trading or manufacturing operation. Service fee, commissions, interest and fee. So if you look at typically a bank makes money by interest that they charge and interest that they pay. That's as simple as it is. Banks have started doing complicated things now. But that's basically your income comes from. Now when we go, Claire, any more questions on income or intake? Okay, so next one will be expenses. These are much more common across all the businesses. So just give me some idea of what kind of expenses you can have. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Business setup,
Salaries.
utilities.
Yeah,
Yeah.
registration.
Yeah.
Taxes.
Okay. Okay. Let's look at some of them. So salaries, admin expenses, stationery, travel, phone, interest, cost of material. Cost of material would be the highest for the sales people. Cost of material would be least for service industry. Rent, utilities. I mean, I just put down some of the categories, but you have many more expense ones. So this is where it becomes important, and I would say in business case, you need to really think about it. What are your entry costs? So you were talking about licensing. That's an entry cost. To me, it's a sunk cost. Even if you take a license and you close your business, you're not going to get that back. Typically in here, you will not pay monthly rental. You will pay annual rental, quarterly rental, or half-yearly rental. So the way we look at it is we define costs into fixed costs and variable costs. Fixed costs are those which will not increase in the proportion of your sales or service. That's the simple definition of fixed cost. When I just take an example of rent, so if you rent an office, irrespective of the amount of sales you do out of that office, the rental is going to be fixed. Variable cost is where the cost of goods sold come into picture. So if you are selling, say, water, you're trading for water, you are buying water from someone and trading it. That is direct cost. And if you don't sell 10 bottles of water, you will not incur cost of 10 bottles. To me, that is variable. Now, within variable also, there is another terminology which we call it as semi-variable. So those costs sits between fixed and variable. So variable cost which moves in line with your sales exactly. So 1-to-1 correlation. So if you have $1 of sales and 60 cents of expense, if you do $2 of sales, you will have 120 expense. What happens in semi-variable is there is a step change which happens. So for example, if you invest in something and you have a sale of 100, your cost will be 50. As long as your sale doesn't go up to 150, it will still be 50. But the moment it goes to 200, the cost becomes 70. That we call as semi-variable. So there will be some cost which doesn't move exactly in line with what the sales are going to do. Those are semi-variable. In most of your cases, I don't see those to be playing a big part. Like, I'll give you a very example, stationery. So if you use $100 of stationery in a month for doing $100 of $1,000 of sales, just because you increase your sale to $2,000, the stationery cost is not going to go to $200. It will increase to $110 or $120. That's one example of what semi-variable cost will look like. So I was talking to a couple of people saying that all the business cases that you prepare are based on assumptions. Because to see something real, it has to happen. And when you're starting the business, there's nothing which has happened yet. So when you go and sell a business case, as I was telling earlier, all that you need to try and sell is your idea, and then link it up to how that will result in the financials. and model that. People can question your assumptions, but as long as you have a story around all your assumptions will fly. So, yeah.
What if you're already operational, let's say for 1 or 2 years, and you're not looking for the next, fund to scale your business? You show them where it is now and the projections with the fund injection where it's going to go. What kind of margin are they looking for there for it to be fundable? So like, if we give them 1 million or 5 million now, I need to see what kind of payback in how much time then in that case.
It will be actually easier to get funding if you have something ongoing and you have tested it and proved it. When you are asking for more funds, your intent is to scale it. You need to just show them that how can you scale it and why do you believe that it can be scaled. And I was telling you fixed cost and variable cost. Typically, every business has a huge amount of fixed cost or a startup cost. So as the sales ramps up, you should start seeing your margin improve. It can deteriorate because the competition might come in and that might bring your pricing down. But that will happen even in your base business. So I feel that it will be much easier if you have a proved case already to get funding for scaling it.
But sorry, and that it wouldn't be just about the actual business financials either. It's also, you produced a name.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if you look at Pepsi Cola, for example, if they sold, the money wouldn't be, the money that they're selling out wouldn't be just what they're making on the books. It would be because the name Pepsi is worth.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying. So they are selling.
That's where the.
So that happens when you, Raghu was talking about a lot of these people come to build the small businesses because they have deep pockets. They keep making losses for a few years because they know they can sustain the losses. Once they wipe out the market, they increase the price and then they start making money. So all these big brands, they make huge money. So the reason they make money is because you started believing in that, what they are selling. So when she was asking, her idea is unique, I compare that to a Pepsi Cola. What they are selling is a unique drink to you. What she has is a unique idea. Nobody can find anywhere. How will you compare the price for that product to anyone? So she should be able to charge whatever she wants to charge. And that's how she can market at the market. Okay, once we, so a couple of things which we try, other thing what we look at is when I'm looking at funding a business case. Typically if it's a new case, I'll give you my real life example. So if I have to invest in, I was going back to the previous example, mobile. I have no idea how this world will change, where you can start paying on your mobile and how telecom operators will play in this area, how MasterCard will play in the area. I don't know who will make what amount of money, but I do know that this is future. So what I try to do when I look at the business case is, I tell them, okay, tell me what exactly you are going to do. And every year, I know you will not make any revenue in it. You will make revenue possibly after 5 years. So if someone tells me revenue making this year, I actually don't fund that business case because they are fooling me. So what I ask them is, tell me what will define that you are successful in year one. So there has to be some parameters other than financials which can define that. For example, okay, I have so many people downloaded this mobile app. That could be a parameter. It's not a financial, it's just a leading indicator which can get me to the financial over 5 years. A lot of people start, and finance people started focusing a lot on something which we call KPIs, key performance indicators. That we need to start demonstrating, depending upon how complex the business is. If it's a complex business and the payback, or someone was asking what if 5 years later the payback happens or 3 years later the payback happens. In those cases, to get the funding, you need to start showing that, okay, year one, this is what will be achieved, and these are the performance indicators which will define success or failure in year one. Once you start articulating that very clearly, and even if your payback is 3 years, 5 years or later, you have a chance to get money. Because they know this is a unique business idea. which takes longer time to show returns, but once it shows, it will show higher returns. But you know what you are measuring yourself against, and then it helps to get funding. So, other thing which we do is once we do the business case, we need to keep reviewing what we said, what we will do, and what we are doing. Two reasons for me. One, simply because you need to know what money you are making or what money you are not making. Second reason is I would want to test, saying that, okay, I made such and such assumptions. So I thought I'll make $100 of profit, but I'm making only 50. So which assumptions went wrong? And if those assumptions went wrong, why did they go wrong? And is there a necessity to adjust my business case over 5 years or 7 years? Why this is important, as Raghu was saying, if you fail quickly and shut down the business. Don't wait for 5 years to fail, because then you have incurred a huge amount of cost and you've wasted a lot of time. That's why reviewing your accounts periodically is very, very important. So so this is like, how is your revenue trending? Yeah, so I'm just giving you some ideas what you do in review, but the basic reason why you review is to figure out how is your business doing versus what you thought initially, and do you need to adjust that in whichever way. Do you need to scale it up further? You need to do things differently. If your cost is higher, do you need to find alternate suppliers? It just tells you that something which you thought initially is not going right, or it's going much better than what you thought. So you could come up with a conclusion that, okay, the assumption that you took were all wrong, but the reality is right, and this will be the reality, let's move on. So all that it will help you to do is that how do you adjust for future? And if you are going to get funding from someone, they definitely want to see what profit you are making every year. So this is, one is a necessity to show to the person whom you are getting funding. Second is more important to show that what we will make it a long term.
Where do you get industry figures from?
It's very difficult in this part of the world. There is no published data.
You can pay to Ipsostat to do
so how do you assess then? Because here you say how do your expenses do it as a percentage of sale and compared to other industry? How do you as an investor assess those costs?
So typically what we do today is that we do research whatever is available, and we base our decisions based on that. For us, we also have other parts of the world where the similar business is happening, and I know what the margins those businesses are generating. For example, in Europe, US, the data is published and the data is available. So we look at what they are making. We do some desktop research in this market to see what is available in this market, and then we use both the information to figure out something that, okay, what kind of margin they can make, given what I have from other part of the world versus what I have here. And then I generally know, like for example, a retailer has a much higher margin here. I know for sure. I don't know whether it is 10% higher or 5% higher. So if I get a margin, what a European retailer makes, and I can make an assumption that, okay, they might be making anything between 10 to 15% higher than European market, then I know what the retailer margin here will look like within a range. I will not go exact, but I will know within a range.
So for the audience here, is it fair to look at external sources and build their assumptions?
I would do research. So all this research is available on Google, has done wonders. So you can Google it and find everything that you want. And I think in UAE also the data quality is improving. So over time it will improve.
I think having these numbers in your business case really helps justify your business case a lot better. So to an investor, if you know that you've done your research and this is the margin in the industry and that's the reason you've assumed similar margins, it adds more value to your business case. If you go completely blank without having done industry research, then the investor will look at your story with a little doubt. But if you know exactly what you're talking about, you know what the industry really makes, it adds more credibility.
As I was talking, it's like you have to sell your story. The person who is listening doesn't know better than you. It's your business, you have done more research than what the other person has. So let's just do a quick recap of what we heard till now. It will be sales, that's direct cost, which is variable primarily, will drive your gross profit, something which we call it, and which is what I was explaining, yield might be. Then you have all of your expenses, and then that's profit before taxes. We don't have any taxes, so we don't need to worry about it. And that's net profit. This is again P&L view, where I talk about accrual concept versus cash concept. So this is all we were talking about, the one where we start amortizing expenses rather than taking it in one month.
Can we go back to that slide? Sorry.
So I need to spend 10 more minutes on slides because I just want to give 30 to 40 minutes to do the exercise.
Send a copy of the presentation.
Yeah. So this is where I was talking about cash flows. Even if you are making profit in first year, you might not have money to expand your business because you bought some fixed things in the beginning of the year, which because of the accrual, you are amortizing it over time. You show profit, but you don't have money. That makes cash flow very, very important. And that's what I was saying. If I'm starting my business, I will focus more on cash flows than profit initially, so that I don't go run out of cash at any point in time.
But as an entrepreneur, you have to at some point.
Okay, I'm not saying you don't need to look at profit. I'm saying you need to look at profit, but my primary focus in the beginning.
No, I understand. At some point, you have to take risk. I think that's what I'm trying to say. Is you can, cash flow. I understand that, but at some point, you have to say, if you stay here, then you have to bring more cash.
I completely agree, and I believe if you don't take risk, you will never make a return.
Yeah.
All that I try to tell people is that try to know your risk so that you can manage when those risks happen and plan for those risks. Don't get caught blindsided.
Yeah.
That's all we need to do. And then when you know your risk, you know your appetite to take risk. That's all you need to understand. You have to take risk. Without risk, there won't be any return. All of us will start doing our own business rather than leave MasterCard. So that's what I talked about. Okay, this is just a quick demonstration of what is the difference between a cash flow and P&L, which will just tell you why it is important in the beginning of the year. So, for example, you are selling your goods on credit, and if you sell your goods on credit, based on, as I was telling you, you accrue in your P&L that you have sold, so you have earned the money, but you have not yet got the money. So say you sell it with 2 months credit, so you sell the good, but you get cash only after 2 months. So if you will see in this, in P&L view, you are showing 2 is earned, 4 is earned in first 2 months, but the real cash only flows in month 3 and 4, that 2 and 4. So that's there. Then on material, while you are selling it on credit, your sales, but material you need to pay upfront and get it. Nobody is giving you credit. And that's what typically happens when you start up a business. Nobody is going to take credit risk with you, but everybody wants to take credit from you. They don't want to pay cash to you. So typically you will run in a situation, you will run out of cash in the beginning of the year, apart from fixed expenses. Rentals, as I was talking, we just, for an illustrative purpose, we said that you will pay rent for 6 months in one go. So you'll say, while you made $9 or 9 dirham of loss in month 1, you need 140 dirhams of cash in month 1. If you don't have 140 dirhams of cash in month 1, then you will not be able to do business. Clear? Confused? Confused. Tell me what part you are confused. I'll come back to that. It's a small number.
As we know, it's not realistic. Looking at the small numbers. This is the whole pizza, that's just the parts of pizza.
No, both are whole pizza.
Why we don't have the...
Because it helps you break down, I mean, for the rentals, if you see the cash flow, it just tells you in M1, that's the amount of money you make. But then you have the actual cost split up in 6 months.
So I was just explaining the accrual concept that accountants introduced. And so $30 you have to spend in month 1 if you rent a building. However, you have spent that $30 for 6 months, not for 1 month. So when you recognize it in P&L, you split it over 6 months. That's the only difference. So for example, in a countries where you pay taxes based on P&L. You don't pay taxes based on cash flow. So that's all that I'm trying to bring it here is that many a time we get distracted by looking what profit we are making, if we don't take care of when you might need cash, you will be in trouble.
Yeah. And why we don't have the fit-outs in the P&L view?
Sorry?
Why we don't have the fit-outs cost in the P&L view? Are there some elements in the cash flow that...
Cash, we should have it. It should show it as depreciation in the P&L view.
So it is exactly the same.
Typo. It's a typo.
Sorry, I didn't get your question.
The fit-outs in the cash flow is not in the P&L. So it's exact same.
It should exactly be like rental.
Okay.
Now,
Distribute
over a period of time. It should show there.
Yeah.
Now I'm assured that you got it. So this is again just saying that what is cash flow? It's just money in and money out. That's it. When it's profit and loss account, it's not money in, money out. It shows that what you have actually made in that year from an accountant's view. To pay your taxes, to do everything else. Cash flow, again, is more important in the initial part of the business, but P&L is important when you go to the later part of the business, when you are no more running out of cash. So once you are cash surplus, then you need not bother so much about cash flow. But in the initial part of the business, cash flow is very, very important. Okay, we talked about, is that clear? Because I'll switch the topic now. And this is basically what you asked for. How do you evaluate whether you need to get into partnership? And if you are getting into partnership, what kind of share you need to give to your partner? You were asking Raghu, saying that, so if an angel investor comes or if a venture capitalist comes, they will need a return for their money. They don't want a fixed return. They want a return out of your profit. And if somebody wants a fixed return, you should not get them money from them because you are putting yourself to too much of risk. So if somebody is coming as an angel investor, you should try and share the risk and return with them. That's the way I will do it. Many other people might do it in a different fashion. So if I'm not sharing a risk and return, I will do it differently. If you are very confident about your business, if you are 100% sure that you will generate a lot of money and by paying fixed cost, you are better off, which means you are assuming more risk from your perspective because you are not sharing it with anyone and you are committing a fixed return to the investor. Typically, investors don't want fixed return. They want share of your profit. If they wanted fixed return, they can figure out stock market, they can figure out other deposit schemes and all those. They do want a share of your pie. So I've put out two simple examples saying that where could be when you need someone to come and join you. Sometimes you need a particular expertise. So you are an expert in your area, but you know that, okay, I need another set of expertise to work out this business. So you have two options to get that expertise. One, you can hire that person and pay that person a fixed salary. Or you can get that person as a partner. Again, just take an example. If I'm working in a multinational company as an accountant and some small company comes and asks me, okay, why don't you leave the job and come and join me? I'll pay you the same salary. Why would I do it? Because I'm assuming a much higher risk going to a smaller company than working in a multinational. So when you hire a person who is going to provide you that expertise, it will come much more expensive to you than to somebody else. That's something which we call it as a risk premium. So that everybody takes risk and everybody adds a premium that they want for taking that risk. Is that too complicated?
No, it's not.
So
would you also add commission basis into this? If salary is not one route, partnership is not a route,
you can
commission
do
based?
that. You can do that. That's another option. So I just took 2 examples simplicity, but that's another option that you pay a fixed salary and then you pay a commission. The only again, I will leave it to individuals' risk appetite. When you are doing a business, if you get a person who is getting a fixed compensation, do you think he will have, and commission is another piece. I want that person to be a lot more committed in the business, or as much committed as I am. If once you're giving the person the fixed salary, his comfort factor is higher than your comfort factor. I would not want that.
Not salary, only commission.
It will be difficult. Then you are getting into more like a partnership. So if you tell me to leave my job and come and join you, and you will only pay me commission, why would I do that? If I'm growing your business, I know that my commission is going to go in a linear way, but your profits are going to shoot up. So I am taking much more risk for the return than I can get. It will be very difficult to find someone to do that. Which is again, what you are talking about commission, then if you structured it as a, okay, you will give, there will be step up in your commission as and when we earn more, that again, in a other way results into giving you a partnership or other partnership.
I'm just taking myself personally here. When you're at a stage where you can't afford to pay someone, but you need to hire someone, and you're not quite sure you're going to go the investor route or partnership route, I thought that possibly can be that next step to.
That's about finding the right person.
So if you can find that person, I'm saying that it's very good from your own perspective. But the person whom you are hiring on commission, it's not a great deal for him or her. So will you be able to find that person? In an ideal world, it will be very difficult to find that person. Because the one who's going to join you is also going to think for his risk or her risk and return that they're going to get.
Yeah, there's a lot of part-time moms.
Oh yeah.
Unless they don't leave their job, full-time job to do that. So
they're not giving up their job, so it's a very different scenario.
But isn't that a different approach altogether? Because you're talking about partnership, and what she's hiring is a part-time salesperson.
You can do that. So you are asking for a part-time salesperson. For me, that's covered in salaries. So that's cost of doing your business. When you look,
Sorry, what I've done is when he was mentioning what not to be greedy about your 100% shares, so I gave up 20% shares for sweat equity as someone that has a job but loved what I was doing, and they wanted to help, and I couldn't afford to pay them. So I gave them in exchange sweat equity for 20% shares.
That's what I was talking about. That's what I was saying.
So this is what.
So yeah, this is what I'm talking about.
Commission.
Well, yeah, or setting it up in a structure.
You can do that. So that's what I was coming to. So if you look at what I'm saying, what you will do here. So typically, I'm coming and I know that, okay, I'm earning $100. By taking a job with you or a partnership with you, I'm putting myself at a huge risk. I can attach a premium of 50% to that, which means I need $150 to work with you long term. Because in the initial term, I might make less. So and your annual profit is $500,000. In the equilibrium, it will translate to that I need a 30% profit margin.
So it's profit share. It's just while they are working with you. It's not giving percentage of your company away. Because when you're talking partnership, you're confusing it. Because one thing is partnership, where you actually say you give them 10% of your company or 20% of your company. But what if it doesn't work out with that person? I mean, if you bring them in because of the expertise, but profit share is not partnership, right?
It actually lines up with partnership. You need to determine your need, what do you want. So if there is an expert and you need the person's expertise also, you will want to give a partnership.
So percentage of the company.
Percentage of the company.
So that person also, so again, if you say that you are going to give 30% of the profit, what happens in the duration where you are making loss?
Yeah.
How will that person going to cover that cost which that person left his job or left his expertise elsewhere and came with you? Why will that person come? So you will have to actually give the full rights to the company, in the company for 30%. I mean, I'm just illustrating how can you work out what could be the amount. So all the deals happen because people think the risk premium in a different way. So for you, you might think the risk premium, so you might drive $100 benefit, but in his mind or her mind, she thinks, okay, she can contribute $80 benefit to me. So this profit share could work out anything between 20 to 30. But this just gives you a guideline that how can you think of what profit you need to share with the person coming.
And I think your commission idea is completely different. It's more like how, real estate agents, they work on a very, very low basic salary or no salary at all and make 50% of the commission made by the company. It's not profit share or partnership. It's an employment based completely on commission. It exists. It's just that you have to find the right people to do it.
Yeah, but again, then, as I was saying, you need to figure out what is your need.
Yeah.
Do you need more people to just sell, or do you need more people to drive a unique idea?
I think the confusion is start a business in comparison to a business that's been running for 3-5 years. By then, I know exactly what I need. I know what my business is like, so I'm willing to sell the shares. I'm not thinking of losses, but if it's a startup business, then yeah. So I think people are getting confused with it too.
Yeah, I was talking more from a startup perspective, someone who's in 0 to 3 years of business. The other source of fund could be capital. It could come from anyone. We talked about angel investor, we talked about VCs. So how do they think about what share they want to do? It's exactly the same guy. So they have money. They know where they can invest this money and what return they can get. And so the safest one is when you put the money in US Treasury. No more, but we still believe US Treasury is the safest. They can't pay their own salaries, but so that's the safest one. So if investor, typically VCs will never put money in fixed deposit. That's not their business. They'll put money into risky ventures. So they always evaluate saying that, okay, if they are going to somebody like you, which is setting up a unique business and have a unique idea, but no certainty of return, they will put a higher risk premium to the money that they are putting with you. Then they can put money in ELBD, or they can put money with Mall of the M, or it's MR Group and whatever it is. So they know that they have an established business, they have a brand, so they know there is some surety of the return coming from them. So it's all about the risk that they perceive in the business that you see. That will determine what's the share they want. So taking the same example, say the borrowing cost, or for example, you want $1,000 from this investor. That investor can put this money risk-free and get 10%. And he feels that investing money with you is going to be very, very risky. He might just feel, okay, I want double the return if I need to invest it. And they will say, okay, same example. So their cost after marking up the risk becomes 200. And out of 500, they will want 40%. Now, it becomes very tricky when you do work with angel investors, because definitely most of them are smart people.
They will convince you that it's risky to go with you, and then they will increase their...
Absolutely. So I think you have to, this goes on the bargain, how much you can bargain, and how many options you have open. I feel the first piece is easier to crack because you are dealing with people who are like you. But when you deal with people on the investment banking side, they are not people who are like you and me, who are real crooks. So you need to be really careful when you get money from angel investors. And their objective is not to participate with you in the business for long term. They just feel that they will participate with you for a couple of years, get their money and get out. And and sell it to someone else, or come back and sell it to you at a much higher price. So that bargain for a small business enterprise is not easy.
Do you involve lawyers in this initiative?
You have to involve lawyers, but lawyer cannot do the commercial bargaining for you.
Yeah.
Lawyer can only tell you, okay, the contractually, are they fooling you? That's all they can tell you.
So earlier somebody mentioned that should you involve a financial consultant at this point?
Yes, you can. You can. You should. So most occasions, someone was asking that it's difficult to get venture capitalist and angel investor to come. In most places, I have seen that you have brokers who does this for you.
Most places, as in Dubai?
I have not seen much in Dubai.
I know in London it's an active business,
Yeah,
but
it's an active business.
I haven't seen it here.
I've seen here on trading side where it's not about angel investor, but suppose if I have a business and I'm not finding a customer, there are brokers to find me customers and they take a commission. I have not seen. Yeah, there are many.
Yeah.
There are many independent brokers who uses their own relationships to bring sales to you. But I have not seen so many in Dubai to brokerage this one for small businesses.
Yeah.
There are many to do the big businesses. So I can tell you, I know a few in the IFC, for example. So there was someone who was requiring $100 million of funding, and they cannot approach the bank because you need to do all financial proposals and everything. So they engaged a broker who's going to do everything for them and get funding from one of the banks. They are not going to do the funding, and they charge a commission for that. There's no profit share for that broker. They will charge just a commission out of that. I'm sure that those would be existing in the market, but it's not as evolved as I've seen it in other parts of the world. Okay, so that's all on what I have to talk about, the concepts and
Just if it's a partnership 50-50, for example, I don't know the rules in Dubai. Is it necessary to split the money 50-50 and as well as the board decisions? Is it 50-50 or it can be separate?
You can structure it the way you want to structure it.
Okay.
So it's between you and the partner how you want to structure it. However, it depends again on your negotiation capability versus the other one. If I'm investing 50%, I will want 50% say. Typically what we do when we invest in businesses where we go and invest smaller portion of the money, we want a bigger say. So I have invested 20%, but I want a board seat in that. I want to influence decision making. So one who comes and invests, they want to take control also. How to avoid that control will again come back onto your own situation. It's very difficult to say that there is one answer for all.
Sorry, you've given a range of 20 to 30% in the case of expertise. In the case of capital, what?
So I've just taken an example.
Yeah.
You need to figure out, I would say that depending upon how much capital you need and what is the stage of your business in, what kind of your margins you are generating, risk premium will differ based on that. So a financial consultant can help you to understand, given your nature of the business, what is the risk premium that a venture capitalist or an angel investor will attach to the money. That will help you to at least give an idea that, okay, at what point in time you should say no. It will be very difficult for you as an individual to do that. Here I would say that you need someone who is an expert in this area to guide you, saying that, okay, what do you need to do? Many a times the source of funding, there could be alternate source of funding. You don't even need to go to angel investor. There are a lot of banks which have started financing. Now it's again, I would telling that it depends upon individual circumstances, how much risk you want to take. So say if you have a choice to get money from a venture capitalist and a bank, which one you will go for? Because bank will give you money and they will charge you a fixed cost, irrespective of whether your business is making money or not. So they're not sharing your risk. Whereas if you go to a venture capitalist, they are sharing your risk as well as return. If you are confident of getting the money or your business case, and you're sure what you will do in that business, and bank is ready to fund, I will go for bank funding. I don't want to share my profit with anyone because I'm confident what I will generate. So it will be depending upon each specific situation, what source you tap into, and then what profit you share with them. It also depends how much you are desperate about. One thing which I would do is, and again this is what I was talking about, structuring and discussion. Many a times this funding happens based on how confident you sound to that person. If you sound desperate, okay, if they plan to come with 50% expectation, they'll bump it up to 50. But if you are confident and they figure out that you have alternate sources, 40 might come down to 30. So it's all negotiations that you need to do.
Sorry, what's the thing we should make for a bank?
Banks do the same. So for example, if they have to fund MasterCard, they'll probably give me a 3% in. But if they have to give you, they will ask 10%. Because they know that if there is a guarantee that they will get the money back. With you, they are taking a risk that, okay, money might come back, money might not.
But also they ask for, usually they ask for 3 years. It's very difficult.
It's becoming better. I think some banks have started taking risk. It's difficult. It's difficult, and that's why people start going to angel investors or some people who only invest in new businesses. As I was telling you, it's not evolved in UAE yet, but it's evolved in many other markets where there are some organizations, they only give money to new people, and they give it on fixed cost because they are ready to take a risk. Like just compare, this is the scenario where you buy a house and you take a loan. You buy a house, you pay a loan interest rate of 4-5% at max. Because the bank is seeing that if you don't pay, they can take the house away. So they are secure. But when you take a personal loan, no one will give you 7-8% because if you don't pay, what can they do? You don't have any asset to take. So it's again all about risk premium that everybody has. Okay, so case study. So it's a very simple one. It sounds a big one, but it's very simple one. I want you to look at the first part. So what I'm trying to do here is, I'll give you handouts of even the reading here. So what it does is, somebody is starting a coffee shop. So this case study, I got my assistant to write. I said, okay, you tell me what sounds too complicated to you. And she explained me this sounds too complicated to me. I said, okay, let me test this then. So it is basically, you commence a coffee shop project. You need to prepare a cash flow statement and a profit and loss account for 6 months. I again just explained you the difference between profit and loss account and cash flow is just distributing money spent over the time where you are getting benefit versus one is just take money out, money in. So she begins with 10,000 dirham, which she already has in her bank account. She is making sales of 5,000, 8,000, 12,000 and so on every month for 6 months. 50% of sales happen on cash basis and 50% happens on credit basis. All expenses needs to be paid in cash. The variable cost or cost of material is 60% of sales. Rental is 1,000 per month. That is paid on 15th of every month, following month. However, the landlord has demanded 3,000 of security deposit to start. Salaries are 2,500 per month. Marketing expenses you incur only in Jan, March and May, not every month. Utilities are 500 per month. Leave the next part. Let's try and do a P&L based on the information that you have from the first part and a cash flow for 6 months. That's the exercise. Yeah, I have handouts. So how do we do it? Because I don't want everyone to do individual. We can do it in group of 4 or 5. Each table.
do it together.
Yeah.